Hello, this is me, Derek Kaiser 93, and this is a Pretty Little Rainbow Live episode 25 review. Now, basically, this episode was the start of something very, very big, which was the Try Grooving session. Now, of course, it ended off a cliffhanger, but I will talk about that right now as I get into the review. Now, basically, the episode starts off with what we saw at the end of episode 24, which was Belle basically failing to perform Prism Live, and her mother telling her that she's going to practice violin she's going to go practice violin in France, and that her Prism shows are now over. Then what happens is we see Naru, An, and Ito. They're inside of Prism Stone. An's like, oh yeah, let's go practice our trio dance, or our trio trio dance. And what happens is then Wakana and Otoha come in saying that they can't find Belle and that she disappeared after the show. Of course, they're all shocked about this, and Wakana's like, oh yeah, we can't leave her like this. Then what happens is we see Naru and Rine walking home. Naru's like, oh yeah, I wonder what Belle-san's doing. And then Rine runs off and then finds Belle. It says her classic yo, as well, it's one of my favorite catchphrases from her, yo. But besides that, what happens is then Belle and Naru get into I wouldn't say an intriguing conversation, but a conversation basically that Belle keeps saying that she's not loved and that no one loves her, and then Naru's like, oh yeah, there's actually people who love you, or actually people who like you. I mean, I like you, you know, but of course it's nothing measured to Wakana-san and Otoha-san, how they like you. And then what happens is we see a flashback to when Belle slapped Naru's hand away, trying to say it was a good competition, and basically Belle saying I hate you. But what happens is then we see Wakana and Otoha come. They're like, oh yeah, Belle-san. Otoha's like, thank you. Wakana's thank you, and they walk away. Now what happens is then I believe it's the next day, and Wakana and Otoha are Wakana asks, oh yeah, did you get any response? And Otoha's like, no. She hasn't been answering the phone. Then we see Naru, and Ito in Prism Stone again, but this time they're doing their trio dance. They're practicing their trio dance like they said they were going to, but unfortunately, they stop in the middle of it, and Naru's like, "Oh yeah, you okay?" to Ito because he looks really flushed. She's like, "I'm not really feeling it. I'm feeling." And what happens is then An says take a break. Then we skip over to Belle's house. Wakana and Otoha go there. They're trying to convince Belle. Belle's like, just leave. And that Wakana's saying, oh, we need to talk. And, are you really going to quit Prism shows? Is it just because your mother said so? And then Belle's like, I don't want to be involved with you two anymore. And says that to trying to perform Prism Live that she can't. And then she's performing in Prism shows that are about teams and just pretending to be friends, and that good riddance to Prism shows Netta Rose, and closes the door on them. Then what happens is we see Belle laying on her bed, and Wakana sends her text saying, oh yeah, we'll be at the tournament venue tomorrow. Then the Try Grooving session opens up. We then see Naru, An, and Ito, Naru and An, basically waiting on Ito because she's in the dressing room alone, and Naru, An, and Rine are standing outside, and Naru and An are like, well, yeah, she isn't really up to it. She's been spacing out a little bit. But then we see Kazuki and Koji, they come up, but then it shifts over again to Belle, and Hiro, and this time Hiro is trying to convince Belle. Doesn't do much. He just tries to grab her arm and it's asking where she's gone. Oh yeah, it's a lot of luggage to go to a tournament. And Belle's like, she's going to France. And as she's about to get in the car, Hiro grabs her arm. Belle waves it off and says, tell them I said sorry, and drives off. Then Hiro spouts a quote saying, oh yeah, it's lonely the higher you go, the thinner the air gets. And I understand all that, Belle, but... and then runs off. Then what happens is Kazuki like Kazuki and is talking to An about the whole incident with Ito, and Naru's like, oh yeah, the song is happy and everything, even though, and An then says that the lyrics were also arranged for them, that it sounds more like them. And then Kazuki's like, oh yeah, I understand like someone would be mad if they quote unquote fixed their song. And he then asks Koji, oh yeah, like why'd you do it? Like why did you change your song? Like did you even explain it to her? You explained it to Susanoo? Then what happens is Wakana and Otaha are inside the dressing room. They're sort of waiting on Bell. And what happens is then they're talking about, oh yeah, it's still no response. It's like, nope, still nothing. And then there's knock on the door, walking. Otaha's all happy, like, yeah, come in. Like, you're welcome here. And Hiro's like, oh yeah, don't mind if I do. Then what happens is Hiro tells them what's been going on with Belle, that she's going to France, and that she told him to tell them that she was sorry. And Otaha starts crying. She's like, why would she do that? Like, and then Wakana then goes saying, oh yeah, well, I guess it was a waste of time waiting for her. I mean, it wasn't really worth it. And she's just a selfish queen that she's always been. Like, just, I guess it's good. I guess it's better without her. And then Otaha then says, oh yeah, just don't say things that you don't mean, Wakana-san. And then Wakana starts crying and is like, but really, like, she's only been, like, it's better without her. But then Wakana then gathers up everything and says, okay, you know what? Fine. Let's go to Bell. And Otaha says yes, and then Hiro says follow him, because then they get in a van and they travel over to the airport. Now, before the whole airport scene, what happens is then we see a scene with Himuro and June, and basically it's just a little conversation. It's just a little talk about, oh yeah, how you can't see love, but it's there, and that if you really care for if you really care for someone, then that's love. Then what happens is we see Ito inside the dressing room, and then Koji goes in, and nothing really develops with that. But then the whole airport scene happens. And when the airport scene happens, we see Belle getting ready to go with their mother into the airport. Wakana and Otaha come. They say, oh yeah, we just want to perform Prism shows with you, and just tell us your true feelings. Belle says, I can't perform Prism live. Wakana's like, I don't really care about that. Like, we just want to perform Prism shows with you. Belle's all swayed, and she's like, all right, I really don't want to stop performing Prism shows with you two. And they all hug. And then Belle's mother comes back, says, all right, hurry, let's go on the flight. Belle then stands up to her and says, I'm not going to France. Like, I'm going to go perform a Prism show. And just walks away, and Belle's mother's like, what are you even talking about? Like, just come back. Please, come back. But Belle gets in the van, drives away. Belle's mother says, I can't do anything without you. And then we see Naru and An is still sitting outside with Kazuki, like, waiting for Ito. And then what happens is the van pulls up. They all go, Otaha, Wakana, and Belle go in. They rush in. Otaha gives Belle the stone that she was creating in the last episode for the group that Wakana calls Belle's Rose, which I guess is a sort of twist, not a twist, but sort of a little acronym for what Aki says later is a Belle Rose, which is actually a beautiful rose. So what happens? They get in the uniforms. They perform a song called Rosette Nebula. And really, like Wakana says, the lyrics were tailored for Belle. It's sort of a little homage to what she's done to them, sort of a shining light for them. And what happens is then during the dance, Otaha says, I'll become the scent. to lead Belle on, and Wakana says that'll become the wind that pushes Belle's tears away. And Belle then starts going into a little talk. Like, she starts talking about how, like, goodbye to the child's craving for love, Belle, and, like, thank you, Oto and Wakana. I love you as well. And then Seshi comes out of her egg, flies up, the usual Prism Live, transforms to a violin, and Belle says Prism Live, and it all screen goes white, but unfortunately the episode ends there. So, I really like the episode for the whole entire Belle situation, that they handled it much better than I thought they were going to. I thought it was going to be, they see Belle, say, hey, Belle, how you doing? They get her back. But it was more of a little away from that. Of course, it did happen like that, but it moved it in a sense where it included all the characters inside of it. And if, like I said before, I thought it was going to be Matt Chase for Belle, but it really wasn't. It was more that Belle was just going through and everyone else was just scrambling on what to do to get Belle back. But it all worked out in the end. They got it. It was a new song, new dance, and new group. So, sort of exceeded what I thought was going to happen in the episode, definitely. But again, very great episode, and I can't really wait for episode 26 because that's going to be surely something. But I will explain my thoughts, as I keep saying over and over again. I don't know why I keep saying it, but in the preview review. But again, this has been an episode review. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys later.